I'm going to go to my screen. Hey, I think we're there.
Good.
So, welcome to today's cognitive conversation. I'm Betsy Hill, and Roger Stark is with me, and we're really excited about today's topic, which is the science of reading and the science of learning. So, why is this such an important topic, Roger? What do you think?
Well, I got to tell you, I was just thinking about these live things that we're doing, and the first thing I was thinking to myself, these people don't really know who we are. Who are you talking to? And I thought it might be a good idea to let people know who you're talking to. And I think you in your life, you are who you are, how you live your life. And I think it's important for people to understand that. And one of the things that guide my life every single night and every single day, I set my day up like this. Any kindness or any good I can do for any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer nor neglect it. For I shall pass this way but once, dear God. And that's how I wake up in prayer every morning, and it's how I go to bed every night. Now, am I perfect? Probably not. I bet you I'll be the first one to tell you I'm not. Uh, I'm not perfect, but that's my goal. That's what I strive for. That's the reason I'm in this business. And the reason I'm on this broadcast or podcast today is because I've dedicated my life for meaningful work for lasting good. Because from my perspective, God did not create any junk. And he didn't start with your child or any other child you've ever met. There's a special little person inside every little person trying to figure out how they step into their best selves. And so, what these webinars, or excuse me, podcasts that we're doing, is about helping parents and educators to understand the learner and understand the value of the learner and the whole learning and teaching process. And notice I always say learning and teaching. I never say, you talk to any educator, it's all about teaching and learning. With me, no, it's all about learning and teaching. If there's no learning going on, who cares? It's all about learning. It's about outcomes. So today we want to welcome you to this conversation. It's what we call cognitive conversations with Brainware Learning Company. And we explore a lot of different topics, but it's all around neuroscience and learning. And I'm excited about today's topic, primarily because we're going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the science of learning, connecting with the science of reading and the science of teaching.
Such an important topic. There's what we know is that, reading has become, it certainly is one of the critical things that we need to learn how to do to be successful in our adult lives. But there are so many students who are behind and who are really struggling with reading.
Yeah, and when you stop and think about it, it's pretty tragic on a lot of levels. And this is not a Democrat issue or a Republican issue. This should be a human issue. People, I mean, they're born. The greatest, I think, sin is not empowering a child with the ability to be the best they can be. But most people don't know how to go about doing that. Certainly, educators have really no idea about how learning takes, unless they've chosen to study it outside of their teaching degrees, because in college, they teach you how to teach. They don't teach you how people learn. And most parents that I've met don't have a PhD in parenting. So they're kind of like all trial and error, just kind of trying to search it all out. What should I be doing? How can I best do it? But I know every parent's goal is to raise a positive, self-sustaining, proactive human being in your immediate family and community at large. And I think that's an admirable goal, and that's what we should all be striving to do. We're all human beings. We're not going to get out of here alive. And if we're going to be here, it's a team sport. So we need to work to help each of us have the best opportunity to be the best they can be. And I think that's the number one role of a parent, is ensuring that child has the ability and opportunities to be the best they can be. When you think about the reading proficiency, I guess there's something like about a third of our children nationally that are performing grade work level at third grade proficient. If you layer that back, it gets even worse. Only about 20% of our Latinos and about 17% of our African Americans can do grade work level proficiently at grade level. This is the tragedy of enormous support. And we're going to talk about it today, but it's highlighting one big thing I want to say that I think is real important. I want people to take away from this. The right to learn, I always said, was a civil rights issue. And I think it still is a civil rights issue. But more importantly, it's been elevated now. It's become a national security threat because economically, we cannot sustain. I don't care if you care about kids or if you care about education, but if you care about this country, we cannot sustain ourselves economically with only about a third of our kids performing grade work level proficiently at third. Can't do it. Forget Russia, forget China. We're going to collapse from within. So it's imperative upon each of us to do everything we can to step forward to save this great republic and empowering our children with the ability to learn. Because God didn't make any junk, as I said earlier, and he didn't start with your child or any child you ever met. And we're going to talk about how we unleash that power within the student. The student plays a role in all of this.
So what you're talking about is really, I think, a lot of what is behind this whole, all the attention that the science of reading is getting from state legislatures and policymakers around the country and school districts and all the way down to teachers. And um, at last count, I think it was 39 states have now passed legislation. So 39 out of 50 states actually have laws in place now to require, to mandate at least some form of the science of reading. And what that looks like when it translates down to the classroom, can be another thing. But I think that's underscoring that realizing that maybe the approaches to teaching reading have not been as effective over the years. And so what the science of reading says is that sort of defines the key skills that are part of reading, which are phonics. It's really more about the way that reading is taught, with an emphasis on the sounds of language, because we learn language naturally. We just absorb it from our environments and from being around people. Reading is another thing. Reading is not a natural process, really. And our brains, every brain has to learn it on its own. And the sounds of language are a key aspect of learning to read. And that's what the science of reading tell us. It also tells us that things like fluency and providing kids an opportunity to build that, vocabulary, and of course, comprehension, which, you talk about a lot, Roger. Reading without comprehension is, pretty pointless.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up. Some of you people may be aware now, we've been working with schools for a while, we're workforce, but we're really doing a lot of focus on the parent because the parent really does concern themselves with their child's well-being. They can't just say, hey, it's not working. So what? The kid flunks. I get my check on Friday. What do I care? Parents got a little different dynamic. I think every parent wants to raise a positive, self-sustaining, proactive human being in their immediate family and community at large. And so they're out there searching all the time. And I get into these discussions during the pandemic. It's interesting. That's why I think this is such an important topic. Talking to parents, and they were a lot of times they were mad. And I said, what are you upset about? I said, well, you know, my child's in the fifth grade and the teacher tells me he reads at eighth grade level. So he's a rock star reader. So I don't think anything about it. Okay. And then I'm working with my kid at home and he's flunking everything. So I called the teacher. I said, what's the problem? I mean, you told me my child's a rock star reader, reads at eighth grade level, but he flunks everything. She says, oh, that's because he doesn't comprehend anything he reads. And I said, wait a minute. If he can't comprehend it, he can't read it. When I was a kid, you couldn't talk about reading unless you comprehend. Reading words or saying words or enunciating a word is not reading. That's talking. That's making sounds. A critical part of reading is comprehension. And I think that when you think about the science of reading, which is very important, very, very important, and they're doing some really good work in that area, and they're doing more good work. But I think they need to look at this whole concept of reading or the science of teaching or the concept of in a broader context. They the teacher plays a vital role. There's no doubt. But a teacher is not the most important thing when it comes to learning. People might say, well, then it must be great technology or great curriculum. Once again, those are nice to have, but it's not the most important thing when it comes to learning. And then some people, oh, it's a small classroom. Once again, that's great to have, but it's not the most important thing when it comes to learning. Learning, it's driven by over 50% of one's ability to learn, to assimilate, to process, to comprehend, to apply information, how we interact with people, how we are able to learn and retain information, comprehend and apply it, is driven by our cognitive profile. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're so effective in sustainability. It's this comprehensive, integrated architecture. We work on over 43, as you know, Betsy, over 43 skills. That's the most comprehensive program in the world. You say, well, why is that important? I know people that do 2 skills or 3. Well, because you might get some improvement working on that, but do you want sustainability? Do you want transfer? Now, if those 2 questions are things yes, I want sustainability and I want transfer. Well, if you want both of those things, then you got to build the brain the way the brain was built to work. And the brain is a highly comprehensive, integrated, systemic organ. And if you want substantial change, physiological change in your brain with demonstrated sustainability and transfer, you got to build the brain in the same way it's built. Comprehensive, integrated organ. And that's what we're able to do. So your cognitive profile is absolutely critical to one's ability to learn.
So let's connect that a little bit, because I think that most people that we talk to, most people I talk to are not thinking about cognitive skills all the time. They may not be aware of them. And that when I say that the science of reading involves phonics and fluency and vocabulary and comprehension, those are terms that most people are at least reasonably familiar with, and it makes sense to them. When we say, but that's not enough, we got to connect this to the science of learning and to the cognitive skills that we use to learn, that may not be as familiar to people. So I always think of it that examples are really helpful here. So a cognitive skill like sustained attention is critical in the decoding process. So a child might know how to sound out a word, but if they get distracted or if their attention wanders off halfway through decoding a word and they have to go back, or after a few words and they have to go back to the beginning of the sentence, they are no longer, their fluency and their decoding skills are going to be impacted. Or I think of, we often talk about working memory. Working memory is our ability to hold information in our mind while we think about it. And it's highly predictive of reading comprehension and reading skills in general. And that just makes sense, but we don't necessarily we think that, well, everybody has the ability to hold information in their mind, but our capacity, our ability to hold that information or more information is very individual. If you think about what happens when we're reading, we're taking in pieces of information and we're holding them in our mind while we connect those words and to everything else that we know, which is how we create meaning. That's where comprehension happens. It happens in working memory. It's our conscious processing. And so all of these factors, and there are lots of others that we could talk about, are, those are the science of learning. Those are the how of learning. Those are the processes our brains use to actually take in information, to look at it on the page, and to make sense of it, along with these reading skills. So that's why it's so important to connect the two.
It's critically important. I often say that the most underutilized asset in the learning and teaching process is the student. We never think about the role that the student plays in the learning and teaching process. In education, every issue's a nail and every solution's a hammer. What's a nail? A nail is called instruction. What's the hammer? The teacher. We'll teach more, we'll teach less, we'll teach different, we'll teach this methodology, we'll do that methodology. And all that is good, and you should continue to explore that and investigate those things, and always making sure we're doing the best teaching practices. but those should be in the context of the student. Who are we trying to teach? You know, this concept of education, public education came about 100 years ago. Everybody looked alike. Just about everybody came to the same environment. We were all farmers and agriculture. And so there was a discussion made, where should we start education? And they made a general consensus. This is where most of our kids come to the classroom for the first time. And this is how they are prepared, good or bad. So that's where we'll start. Well, if you learn like the way the teacher is teaching, you're good. It's all about learning. I learned the way the teacher taught. I was pretty good at it. But if you don't learn how the way the teacher teaches it and you learn a little differently, you're going to be in a rough spot. You're going to be in a rough spot. They really don't have much to help you with if you learn differently. And it's not because of the teacher. Teachers are, my gosh, they're great people in so many areas. I can sit here and talk 3 hours about how great teachers are and how valuable they are. But the system does not provide teachers with the resources to help children that learn differently. And when I say about the most underutilized asset in the learning and teaching process, let me expand upon that just a moment. We are all shaped by our environment, our genetics, and our life experiences. All of us are shaped by that. But the great news is it doesn't have to define us. For each of us are the CEO of you Inc. And if you want different, you can have different, but you're going to have to do differently. And to that end, I just want to shamelessly promote our book for a moment. Um, if all this seems alien to you, like about 98% of the parents that we talk to, it is, they've never thought about cognitive skills and learning and behaviors. Typically a path for a parent is if you're having challenges or struggles, you meet with the teacher. If that doesn't get you what you think you need to drive the process you're interested in driving, then perhaps you look around the school, maybe get a counselor, maybe get a speech and language, maybe go to the principal, maybe go to the superintendent. But at the end of the day, after that, then they typically run to a tutor. Well, what's a tutor do? A tutor does what a teacher does. They teach. They're not going to fix anything. But if this subject seems a little big and it's a little interesting to you, and you'd really like to understand how do I empower my child to be the best they can be, because that's the number one job of a parent, is to make sure that child has the ability to learn, to assimilate, to process, to comprehend, and to apply information efficiently and effectively. This book will give you a guide. If you're wondering about how I get where I need to get, this is your guide. And if you want a hard copy, you can do that. Soft copy, but you can get a Kindle copy, I think, for $4 or something, $5. So we've tried to make it as affordable as we possibly can for everybody to be able to access this powerful information that will empower a parent to provide real substance to their child's life. And that's the ability to learn.
Yeah, so in the book, we go through all of this in a lot of detail and build up a true understanding of cognitive skills, why they're so important and how they're so different. But the other thing that is really, the hope and excitement and the promise of all of this science is that we also know that we can improve these cognitive skills. So we don't just get stuck with what we come into the world with. We actually can strengthen those cognitive skills. So if working memory capacity or if attention skills or if any of the other cognitive skills we've been talking about are not strong, and that's the reason that kids are struggling with academics. And usually that's the case. It is almost always the case that when kids struggle academically, it's because there are weaknesses in some set of underlying cognitive skills. And so rather than gloss over them or just provide supports, we actually can build them. And that's something that I think parents and educators and all of us need to be very much aware of.
It's a great blessing and enormous opportunity to be a parent. You know, I give talks to churches and synagogues and mosques and so forth, and I'll have all parents, and I'll say, how many people have children? Everybody raises their hand excitedly. I say, that's terrific. How many people have a PhD in parenting? Then they all look like a deer in headlights. Um, it's tough being a parent. It's tough work. Once you decide to have a baby and you wake up, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Then you're looking at every child you've ever admired or every parent you've ever admired because you want to be the best parent you can be for your child. And for so many years, There was no path. There was just no path. The assumption was you were born with the cognitive capacity that you have, and you've got enough to go to school, and whatever you came to school with, that's all you needed. And it's going to give you all the success you could ever imagine, all the academic success, all the. And if you don't, it's because the parents are lousy parents. That's what an educator would. Or the student doesn't work to their potential. Are the students lazy? Or the student is have oppositional defiance disorder, or the student can't pay attention. It's all about
Or
what
it's,
they're
or
not
it's
being.
yeah, or it's even, I mean, I just it's truly heartbreaking, but there are parents still that we talk to who come in and say, I just was told not to expect very much of my child. They're never going to be able to learn to do X or Y or Z, or, forget about reading, forget about math, forget about this. Maybe that because of that underlying assumption it's just implicit in so much of what we do in education and in supporting children, that it's that you're pretty much stuck with it. And as you said, that's not the case.
You know, and I'm a little biased here, so if there's any men listening, I apologize, but I'm a mommy's boy. Let me just be clear. I was raised by a single mother, working in a factory for $1 an hour. She worked very, very hard to do everything, to be my dad, to be my mom. I really think there's a special place in heaven for mothers. Frankly, that's my opinion. Um, but it's good or bad, you're charged with this responsibility, and you haven't had a lot of guidance as a mom. You really haven't. And
We
but
all we all make it up.
yeah,
We all
but
make it up.
I'm here to tell you today, you have a choice as a mom, and recognize number one is that if your child does learn differently, the cavalry's not coming. The cavalry's not coming. You're on your own. You're on your own. School isn't going to help you. Your child ever gets behind, God forbid, they have no way of catching it up. You got what they call an IEP 504, but that doesn't get you where you need to go to optimize that child's capacity to be the best they can be. So it's going to be you. And if you learn nothing else from this call today, realize one thing: you are on your own. Only you, and perhaps in consultation with the husband, are going to determine whether your child has a life of opportunity and choice, or a life of chance and despair. And I know it's not right. It's not right. It's not fair. It's not just. You're paying probably, I don't know, depending on the state you live in, 16, 15, $18,000 a year to educate your child. And you say, wait a minute, I'm paying. I get it. I get it. But you can sit there and complain about it all day long. It isn't going to change it. Education is all about politics. Got to understand, teachers are government workers. They're processors. They're got to check that box. They get that. They can flunk every child on Friday and they will get their check.
So I just want to
Can't
jump
live
in
that
here
way.
because I am a teacher,
You are a teacher.
and and uh, and I don't think that that's how teachers think of themselves. In fact, I'm quite sure
I
it's
know they
not.
don't. I know they
But
don't.
what they are constrained by is the system that mandates that certain things get covered and in certain ways. And even if teachers want to, and in my experience, they do want to understand, they're fascinated about learning, and they would like to understand how learning, they would like to understand the science of learning as well as the science of reading and the science of whatever, because they care about kids. And so, but unfortunately they are constrained, and that is that stumbling block. But it's not their intent, but it is the fact of and the result that in most cases the system is not designed to help kids catch up or to help them get um, uh, improve their ability to learn.
I do believe this. Teachers go into teaching because they want to help people. You don't say, I want to be a billionaire, therefore I'm going to become a teacher, even though I think at some point they will be that way. They're going to be paid like professional athletes. Teachers are going to make millions and millions of dollars every year, and we can get into that in another time. So it's going to be a fabulous future to be a teacher because you're going to have such control over your own life, and you're only going to be constrained by your abilities. That's it. If you're a great teacher, if you're the best fifth grade teacher in the world, every student in the world can attend your class because you can do it on YouTube or whatever the case might be. So the opportunities to be a great teacher have never been greater with the technology that's taken place. And teachers do, if they could help your child, they would. But Betsy makes a good point. It's the system. So if any teachers are on here, what I would recommend, next time you're going to strike, don't strike for money. Don't strike for this. Don't strike for one thing. Strike for your student. Learning. Strike. We need to empower our children with the ability to learn. That's and we can. There's no excuse. We can. We can make our learners better learners, where it's easy for them to be taught, easier for them to learn. And if you're going to strike, that's the place to strike. If you want to dispel all the negatives about education, you do that, Yvonne is going to be your world. If you have any
I'm very
questions, remember this. This is the book that will give you a path, that will give you a way. And that's all you're looking for is a path and a way, because once you're given the right way, you're a parent, you're a mom. Nobody loves their kids more than a mom. The mom is the most important thing in the whole world. I'm prejudiced. I told you I was raised by a mama, but I just think moms are just the best of the best. I want to
so.
thank everybody for, oh, go ahead, Betsy.
Oh, I just wanted to, one of the things we try to do in every one of our conversations is to offer some practical advice, some strategy or something that is very, that can be used right away by parents or teachers. And it sounds pretty simplistic, but with all this science of reading, sometimes people start to wonder, well, so what is it that I can do? Because I'm not, versed in the science of reading as a parent, maybe. And one of the wonderful things about this, like a lot of the every new approach that comes along always brings with it something from what we've always known to be true, because what we've always known to be true was true whether or not we knew why it was true. And so the thing that parents can do that is probably going to have the most impact on their children and their ability to read is to read to them. And I'm sure you may have favorite books from when you were a child. I do. And that, frankly, is something that if as a parent, when your children are very young, cuddle them on your lap, give a book in their hands. Kids should be able to feel and touch a book, learn what it's like to turn the pages. And the fact that they will request their favorite book over and over again is a tremendous part of building the skills for reading. So that thing that you thought was just something that you were supposed to do because you're a good parent is actually because you really truly do know something about the science of reading.
Betsy, I'd like, to that end, we're always trying to find, because the type of therapy that we work in has historically been very, very expensive. I mean, before our doctors 50 years ago started to put this together to get the kind of help that we provide, you'd spend $100,000. So it was only the privy of the super, super rich. Now with the clinical portion, which we come from the clinical background, you're still, if you go to a clinic 3 to 4 times a week, 12 to 15, you're going to spend $10,000, $20,000. Of course, now with technology, we've been able to reduce that dramatically. But to get you started and to kind of help stir your thinking and set you on the right track, we now have a program. And I'd like for you to talk about that program, Betsy, and what you're offering for parents and helping empower parents to be better at what they do. It's not a lot of money per month, and it really gives you a lot of great insights. And we have neuroeducators, and I don't know if you know what neuroeducators are, but those are people that are proficient in the science of teaching and proficient in the science of learning. Betsy Hill is a neuroeducator. She's proficient in the science of teaching and has taught, as she talked about earlier, and she's also proficient in the science of learning because she's chosen to study that. And she leads all of our neuroeducators. And so with this new program, you'll get an opportunity to sit with Betsy once a month for about an hour. And I got to tell you, parents just, they're, To sit with
Yeah.
Betsy an hour and talk about this, it's a changing experience. Let
It's
me
my
just,
favorite, if it's my favorite part of my favorite part of the course. So this all came about because over the years, in all the work that we've done with parents and helping them understand how their child learns and helping them understand how to use that information and the strategies that make the most sense for their child as a learner. We've created a lot of material and um, took us a while to realize it, but what we've done now is put it all into one place, into a course. We call it Unlocking Your Child's Learning Potential.
powerful
And
stuff, powerful stuff.
it's it's it really builds up from the basics of how learning happens and the science of learning all the way through other kinds of topics that parents really appreciate hearing about the developing young minds, what happens when your child becomes an adolescent, so the teenager's brain, um, uh, growth mindset, learning other kinds of learning strategies, and very much focused on how helping you understand how your child learns. So that's what the monthly meetings are mostly about, is about really talking about what we've learned, what that looks like, and how to help, specific strategies and things like that to help your child. So what we'll do is we'll post a thing in the comments section with a link to more information about that program.
I think that's very valuable. And what's great about it, what I love about it, is the affordability of it. I mean, people are stressed right now, man. I'm telling you, everybody, I know we like to say we have the lowest unemployment and all that stuff, but the inflation, what it's done to us over the last 3 years has just decimated so many families. And they just have no free money. And so Betsy put this together and she's done an outstanding job. Maybe I'm a little prejudiced, but I think she's done an outstanding. I've heard so many things from so many parents. They're just like, wow, I couldn't afford all of that, but man, this gets me on a path. I feel like I'm on a track now. I know where I am, I know where I'm going, and it may not be everything I want, but it's far better than being all by myself. And yeah, you ought to, it's worth investigating. I would surely investigate that. We've done a lot of talking today. As you've already noticed, I like to talk. Very passionate about what we do. I mean, I tell people all the time, what a rewarding life to be involved in this and be able to help people and help children that are in need. There's nothing more rewarding than what we do, and that's why I'm so excited about it. But I want to thank you for your time
We
today.
do need to wrap up at some point, Roger.
Okay. So I was getting ready to say, we're going
Okay,
to wrap
great.
it up today. We're going to wrap it up today. We'll be back next week. Betsy will make sure you have our contact if you want to talk to us about anything. We're just here to support you. Um, Kids are our life, they are our life. People ask me about kids, and somebody gave me a beautiful poster one day for my birthday and it said, to Roger Stark, saving all the little sea biscuits throughout the world. And never give up on your child. It's a gift. It's a gift. Never give up. Never give up. We're here to support you. God bless you. Have a beautiful day.
See you next week. In the meantime, take care of your brains.
Bye bye.